That's James's dinner for today. Nothing too exciting. Some jambalaya and some rice and shiitake mushrooms and such things. So we'll see how that goes. I had the camera all leveled and then I moved it. Silly me. So James is going to be talking about Stalin's daughter. So that's the book. And then he's going to talk about the war symphonies, Shostakovich against Stalin. And I'm going to talk about these other two, Justified Season 1 and Silent Witness Season 27. That's amazing. They've had that many seasons. So, sounds like the wind set somebody's car alarm off. The wind is
just in time for our broadcast.
Yeah.
Podcast.
So, I don't know. I will set the book down here, and then James will probably want to show you some pictures and stuff.
Yeah, there are some pictures in there, some quite interesting. Many of them I've never seen before, so they were in the possession of private hands, so some of them quite revealing.
So, James decided that this should go on top of the stack. I tried to watch it myself, and I thought it was not for me. It was too boring for me. You read a lot of subtitles.
Yeah.
I didn't like the music.
I actually understood a bit of the Russian. I'm more a person who concentrates on reading the language, but I could pick out some individual words and stuff.
That was an ad. Anyway, so James will talk more about that. And I'm just going to mention, I've already reviewed this, I believe, this Season 1 Justified City Primeval, whatever. Now you can see on the back of the box here, there's these two actors in this that look so much alike that this guy could be the son or even the same person, just a younger version, right? And that's the problem I have with this show. The main problem. It's entertaining. There's good story there, but whoever did the casting, they didn't think that through. These people don't look different enough. And so while I was watching it, I was reminded, oh, I've seen this before, because I remembered feeling like, oh, is that the same guy? You know? You can't have that in a show.
They both got the goatee type of thing.
Yeah, they just look too
round
similar.
Faces.
Their noses are kind of similar.
Yeah,
they're whatever,
little
right?
pudgy noses.
So it's just they're way too similar. And one guy's the bad guy, or there's a few bad guys in this, and the other guy, he's the marshal, right? And so, like I was watching it, same thing happened this time, and then I was like, oh, wait a minute, yeah, I remember feeling this way. So I was watching it, and I'm going, okay, so is this Marshall, was he kind of a rebel in his youth, and he got into some mischief and whatever? It only becomes clear a little bit later on that no, these are two very different characters. And so that's a problem, because a lot of the time people are watching fiction to veg out. They're taking the show in as a kind of tranquilizer so that they can sleep. They just want to, they've been working all day, probably been having to deal with people they didn't like, and hopefully that's windy. So
where'd that come from?
So they just want to sleep. So they don't want to have to think about, wait a minute, that's a different guy? Or what's going on here? No, it needs to be clear. So whoever did the casting, I mean, I can understand both these guys are really good in the roles, and so it's like, you're gonna have to choose one though. So honestly, I look forward to seeing season 2. I haven't seen season 2. This was out in 2023, so I should look for season 2 because it's probably out now.
Maybe it was the same guy doing Peter Sellers.
No.
Just kidding.
So I look forward to seeing the next one, because the there won't be that problem unless they do a casting thing where they have, but they've already shown some of the who you should expect to see in the next one, whatever. So Silent Witness, complete season 27. This is a very popular show. I don't need to say that. 27 seasons? So
I've never even heard of it. I've never seen it.
Okay, well, it's basically like a CSI
Miami.
sort of thing. No.
Vegas, then?
Not at all, any of those. It's like a sort of a British version of that, so it's really...
Oh, I can remember hearing that in the background. But...
Yeah, so it's a story, you kind of follow the main lady. She's a coroner, but there's other detectives, you know, that you're following too and whatever, but it's mainly her. So there's some interesting stories in here, and I can see why it's popular. It's kind of, well, it seems like British police stuff, right? It's not as exciting. You watch the American stuff, and it's you know, guns a-blazing and whatever, right? There's a lot of action in the British stuff. It's not as much. There's more to think about or whatever, but less action. So it's really calm. But anyway, I don't really have an explanation for why it got bottom of the stack here, because I do enjoy watching it. Who doesn't, right? 27 seasons. So it's not that I don't enjoy watching it. There's some things, okay, I'm going to say something that some people might be kind of offended, whatever. There's a...
Spoiler alert, people.
There's a character in this who's deaf, and she's working at the police, with the police. And she's a young girl, and she's really lovely. And I can see why they wanted her to be a part of it. But, and I can't see why, like I was saying to James, I can't see why deaf people wouldn't be working with everyone now. They can text. If they can text, they're fine. You know, they can work with it. Because honestly, the generation since probably 2000, born since 2000, they're always texting. They probably don't want to have to talk to each other anyway. So she would probably be a good fit, or character that, you know, like that would be a good fit in a police setting or anywhere. But the problem I have is how they're fitting her into the show to show us. So they have, rather than having her text all the time or whatever, which would make the most sense, because not everyone in the police station is going to know how to sign. And it would be ridiculous if they did. That would just make the story seem crazy. So instead they have a translator for her. So there's the woman there doing the sign language, like with her, and translating back and forth and talking, you know, and it's like, okay, nobody would do that. Nobody would hire anybody in a like a kind of Joe job almost, or whatever, and have like somebody hire somebody to translate for them. It just didn't work. So that's the main reason why I got bottom of the stack from. So I'm going to put you over to James, and I'm going to get working on this. I went and picked up a whole bunch of soap hoses from the dollar store, and I'm going to work on getting them out of the wrapping and stuff like that while James is talking. So here, would you like to hold this one first or the book? That one. Okay. Both of them. All right.
$25?
You have about 20.
The War Symphony, Shostakovich against Stalin. Stalin's daughter, Svetlana. not sure how to pronounce her name. Hallelujah. 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 This seems to be a German production. Although it's got the Netherlands Radio Philharmonic. And the guy who did the film is called Larry Weinstein. And it uses the Kirov Orchestra. Valery Gurdjieff, maybe that's the conductor. Seems like a pretty nice guy. So, how many more symphonies were there? 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 6 of them. It doesn't play all of them in sequence or anything like that. It's more yipping and yapping. Unfortunately, there's much to be said, too much to be said really about Joseph Vissarionovich Stalin, or Jugashvili, I think his last name. Probably putting the accent wrong, so what the heck. A Georgian fellow. That's not where Atlanta is located, Georgia, Republic of the one of the 15 republics of the former Soviet Union. So Joseph Stalin, appropriately, was born in a place called Gori. Spelled a little bit different from Gori. Transliteration ordinarily is G-O-R-I. But he's a bad guy. One of the baddest guys ever to come down the pike, along with Genghis Khan, Hitler. Lenin maybe wasn't quite as bad as him. Umar, Caliph, second successor to Muhammad. Tamerlane. This guy's probably worse than Tamerlane. Mao Zedong. I really want to mispronounce it. Like he's definitely in the top 10 bad guys. Just a terrorist, a brutal terrorist, domestic and foreign terrorism, supporting foreign terrorism. And I don't know how Shostakovich survived it. Well, it was about Nazis. I guess about the defeat of the Nazis. So that helped maintain his relative popularity with Stalin. That's all that mattered. It mattered what his popularity with the party was. Stalin. It's like Louis XIV was reputed to have said, "L'État c'est moi." The state, it's me. But Joseph Stalin could have said that about the state, the Soviet state. Or could have said it about the party. The Communist Party is the general secretary of the Communist Party, which is kind of like the equivalent of a pope, but Pope of the Catholic Church. But the thing to understand about the Eastern Orthodox Church is there's much less separation of church and state. And of course, Russians inherited that and made it much more of this. Communists inherited that, and they made it much, much worse. So it's almost more party and state. So Shostakovich, I mean, this stuff is kind of like program music, and it's not as obvious as the War of 1812 Overture by Tchaikovsky. Like where it's got part of the French national anthem also. That is back then. I don't know if it still is. And then it's got cannons going off. It's almost as dramatic as AC/DC's "For Those About to Rock, We Salute You." Well, maybe even more dramatic.
Maybe even
back
more
then,
so.
Back then
it would have been. Yeah, it's a rock concert.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, sometimes when Tchaikovsky did, they tempo, loud stuff is a little bit over the top for me. I prefer the light stuff like the nutcracker soup, stuff like that. The pieces seem to be very individualized, well realized as far as I'm concerned.
He was talented, that's for sure.
So the mitreißende Dokumentation des preisgekrönten Dokumentarfilms. The mitreißend means it's just like it just drags you along. So what would that be? Not ecstasy. Anyway. They don't have it translated into English, but it's basically when you're just dragged along by your hair or something like mitreißend. I wouldn't call it mitreißend. What did you think of the music of Shostakovich? Okay. The stuff that you heard.
I didn't like it.
You didn't like it. I don't care for it that much, but I do. Worse music put out in the 20th century that I almost appreciate by comparison. I think the important part of it is Shostakovich talking about how he survived Stalin. You know, when you're dealing with something as irrelevant as music or literature, when people's lives are in danger when they're doing that stuff, because of the paranoia of, and you know, the paranoia was built into the system. That's one of the things that becomes very evident reading about Stalin in retrospect, reading about Lenin in retrospect. All this sort of terrorism, crimes against humanity, war crimes. It's built right into the system. It probably goes back to Marx. Marx was enthused about not just the French Revolution, not so much the American Revolution, the French Revolution. Because the French Revolution really got down to the dirty, to the nitty-gritty, and down in the dirt. Because there were the guillotine was there. Now, the American Revolution was relatively civilized by comparison. So the stage of the French Revolution that Marx was always enthused about was the Jacobin. That was the last stage. He doesn't talk about it very much. You know, the idea is that the commies in Russia, when they took over, they were having a discussion about terrorism. Do we, don't we, do we, don't we? No, it's baked into Marx, you know, because he's thrilled about the Jacobin part of the French Revolution. That's when the Great Terror. Doesn't talk about it much, but it comes with the territory. If you're thrilled about that, you're going to be thrilled about Lenin, Stalin, and Mao, and all the domestic and foreign terrorism that these guys were involved in, and the tens of millions of people that these idiots killed. So Stalin's daughter, in here again and again, they keep on saying, oh, people are saying, she's so much like her dad, she kept on losing her temper. Now there's a story in here about Stalin's parrot. Now parrots can be trying. Pauline used to have a
I lost
parrot.
hearing. I did when I got my parrot, I think it was the year after I got a hearing test, and or 2 years or something, and I'd lost hearing in that amount of time, and that's why. Like I wasn't going to rock concerts or anything like that, but Mealy Green Amazon, whoo, she was loud.
So Svetlana, that's the name of Stalin's daughter. She eventually went with Lana, kind of shortened it up, and then took a married named Peters. I think Svetlana Peters was the name she opted for. So Svetlana would occasionally tell Kelly unexpected and entertaining, I don't know if this is entertaining anecdotes about her father, one of which was about Stalin losing his cool with his parrot, right? The English tobacco company Dunhill, a maker of pipes, had given Stalin a particularly fine pipe. So this capitalist company gave him a pipe. Dunhill. In his flat in the Kremlin, his tame parrot used to imitate the awful noises of throat clearing and spit that pipe smokers make when they light up. It was a smart parrot, with a sense of humor, I guess. One day,
they all have a sense of humor.
they do
Parrots
actually.
yeah, they're hilarious.
They do actually imitate people's laughs, or your parrot did.
Yeah.
So one day Stalin was having a tough time signing many lists with Molotov, presumably many lists of people to be killed, with Molotov. So that was his, the guy who handled foreign diplomacy. Molotov incidentally means hammer. Stalin means steel. These guys, the names they adopted were just hilarious. Man of Steel, the Hammer of God, or whatever. Anyway, Molotov, signing many lists with Molotov, and he came home in a terrible temper. The parrot began his routine. Stalin took out his Dunhill pipe and killed the parrot on the spot. Brained the parrot. But ordinarily, when you read about Stalin, Stalin is not the guy to really lose his temper. He's the kind of guy to plot vengeance even against people who've done nothing, just fallen under suspicion or something like that. He'll kill those people. So let's look at some of this. Now these are members of Stalin's extended family. We'll look at Svanidze. I was looking at Alleluia about family. But the Svanidze family that was his in-laws via that is Stalin's first wife. They didn't do terribly well. It's down there.
You looking for something?
Yep, there's... well, it doesn't actually say here. Some of them have a list of something, Maria. Anyway, generally he'd arrest a person a year before he'd have them slaughtered. Eh? So a year before. So it's not as though he had them killed right away. No, he wouldn't blow a stack and have them killed right away. He'd be suspicious of them and have them arrested. And apparently one of his favorite tricks was getting suspicious of a guy, calling him into the office, as it were, like the principal. Hey guy, I'm promoting you. And then a week later he has him arrested. You know how that works out? He's not the type to lose his temper. Or he had a really bad temper, but he'd control it. Whereas Svetlana had a bit of a temper on her, but she kind of let it go. Now, who's that more like? She herself talks about it. I don't know exactly where the passage is. She said she was like her mother. So how impulsive was her mother? Her mother committed suicide. I don't think Stalin whacked Svetlana's mother. He had a lot of people killed via fake suicide, I'm pretty sure. But Nadia was in it. His first wife died too, and I don't think it's under suspicious circumstances. I think she got some sort of a disease. Only 2 wives, poor things. Imagine married to a thug like this. Anyway, it's I'll show you some of the pictures in here. There's some nice pictures in here. As I was saying, they aren't. They are a lot of them never been seen before. So here she is, married to the man whose name she ultimately retained. This is Svetlana. And Wes Peters, who was the lead architect of, what was it called? The Family or the Fellowship? Yeah. So you've heard of Frank Lloyd Wright. This is the guy who became the big architect after Frank Lloyd, or one of them, after Frank Lloyd Wright died. So you tell me who's happy to be married. See, it's an arranged marriage, arranged by the woman who was handling. It was Frank Lloyd Wright's final wife, I think his 3rd wife. She took over the fellowship, and she was controlling a lot of these people. Svetlana started hanging around, and this woman, Olga China or something like that, a thoroughgoing nonentity, arranged for the marriage, because the idea was Svetlana, when she was defecting first from the Soviet Union, went to Switzerland. And the story had already been around that Stalin had, presumably in case that he was ever deposed, had stashed millions of dollars in a Swiss bank or Swiss banks. And this poor Olga, whatever her name is, Olgavana, she figured that Svetlana was had already picked up the money in Switzerland, and then Wes was going to marry her, and then all would be just ducky. Now, as it turns out, poor Svetlana had $1.5 million, when $1.5 million was a lot of money. It wasn't too much earlier than this when Mickey Mantle, the top paid player in baseball, was earning $100,000 a year. You think what baseball players are earning now? And some of the difference is due to inflation. Other things are due to free agency, so on and so forth. Anyway, Wes was apparently really free and easy with the money. And so what do you think of this guy? Who's more enthused about the marriage?
He doesn't look happy.
At all. Arranged marriage. Isn't that awful? And she always figured that he'd come back to her, like, I guess when she had to dump it because it was basically him, a few other people, but he spent a substantial part of that $1 million. He and his son, surviving son, spent a substantial portion of that $1.5 million in pretty quick order. So what a scumbag. The woman who arranged it, who was handling this kind of cult, fellowship or whatever it's called. See, here he looks a little bit more, now after they've been married, he looks a little more reconciled, but he still looks pretty uncomfortable. She looks pretty happy. Yeah. Show you this picture. There we go, there's this West guy. Big tall guy. There's Svetlana, she looks so happy. Poor thing. Looking for love